Good morning, everybody. Um, Thank you so much, Bante, and many blessings to you too for your kind introduction. I think it's of course an honor for me to have you like this and to speak to you few words. I know that once in a while I get the chance somehow, so I must be thankful again and again to Bante, Shanti, and all of you. Since the day I arrived here in US, I do believe I have improved a lot now, because first I took much time to be familiar with your culture and this country, and I like this all the stuff here. So I'm always happy to speak to you like this, and today my topic would be something special for specifically those who are interested in practicing the Buddha's teaching. The reason is we are getting more and more people to our IBMC, and they are also learning a lot here, because one of the speakers would give you a talk here, an enlightening talk, so that you can also improve a lot. So thinking about that part, I thought that it's better if I can speak to you something in relevance to our conduct, our behavior, which we can introduce according to Buddhism as morality. So the topic, it's easy, self-restrain always through retrospection, right? Now we can go ahead with this topic and it's clear, but I have to bring many more facts and resources to prove how we can gain self-restraint through retrospection. In Buddhism, to come to the level of great understanding, you may call it in different terms, like perfect knowledge, freedom, like this, nibbana, nirvana, like this. So to achieve this state in the teachings of the Buddha, we have of course different paths. The foremost thing is, the very basic thing is, we have to understand what is meant by all these theories and all these teachings. Otherwise it does not of course make any sense to our lives. So how we can gain this self-restraint through retrospection? What is all about this self-restraint? What is all about this retrospection in relevance to our behavior, our conduct? And if somebody asks you a question, how we can differentiate a person who is practicing a kind of a higher level of conduct, morality, from another person? Of course, Buddha has presented in his teaching many ways, many teachings. So when we go through these explanations given by the Buddha, we can very easily understand whether we are in a level of higher moral conduct. But it does not mean that when we are practicing the Buddha's teaching in conformity with a moral conduct, that the other people, the ordinary people in the society are, inferior to our behavior or our what we are practicing anyway. It's our happiness, and we are going to practice these things for our freedom, for our peace in our mind. Of course, in Buddhism, the term we can find for this self-restraint is nothing but it is the sila. Sila can be defined in different words, different ways. Basically, it gives the meaning self-restraint. No one can impart any knowledge or any kind of, power to practice sila for you if you are the person who is practicing this moral conduct. Sila is always self-restraint. We have to practice it by ourselves. If you practice it by yourself, you will be rewarded. You will be benefited. No one can make you to practice sila. If somebody tries to, make you to practice sila or moral conduct, to inculcate some kind of, higher level of conduct in your life, I don't think that, I would definitely think that it is something impossible, because you would, but only to a certain extent. To be a perfect person, to come to the complete understanding of this moral conduct, you yourself have to, practice it on the basis of self-restraint. So how we can gain actually this self-restraint through retrospection? Remember, whenever it comes to self-restraint, it always connected with the other one, retrospection. And I of course would like to share with you a very good, very interesting story that happened during the Buddha's lifetime. And this is highly in relevance to what I am going to explain today. Earlier I asked you the question how we can differentiate a person, a normal person, with the person who is practicing some kind of higher level of conduct. Buddha says in one of the places in this particular story, actually this is a discourse, a public discourse given by the Buddha to a specific king, and there he says, it is only by living with someone that his morality or virtuous life is to be known. That's also after a long time, not by a shorter time. Again, that's also by being attentive and not by a person who is heedless. That is to be known again by the wise and not by the, I'm sorry for using this term, by the foolish people. It says in the Pali terms, in Pali sayings like, Samvasena ko Maharaja Silang Veditama. That means it is only by living together we have to understand whether that person is practicing a kind of moral conduct. Panchako Dige in Aduna, that's also after a long time, not by a shorter time. Panchako Dige in Aduna Naitara. Manasi Karota no Amanasi Karota. Manasi Karota means if you are mindful whether he is practicing some kind of moral conduct, you will definitely know who he is. And if you are heedless, amanasakarota, you won't be able to understand whether he or she is practicing a specific kind of moral conduct. Again, Buddha says that panyavata no dupanyena. Panyavata means it is only by the wise and not by the foolish people. Okay, why did the Buddha give this talk? What made the Buddha to give this specific talk? Of course, this is a discussion, conversation which happened between the Buddha and another king who lived in India. That king, I wonder whether you may have heard, those who are reading the Theravada text. There you may find you definitely meet a king by the name Kosala. His name is Kosala. One day this king was just by, the Buddha was having a very wonderful and a conversation, a chat with the Buddha. Meanwhile, the king saw that 7 kinds of ascetics were passing just close to the Buddhas and their temple, this monastery. 7 kinds of groups. So this sutra is called, this discourse is can be found in the teachings like Sapta Jatila Sutta. That means 7 kinds of jatilas. Jatilas means in India at that time there was a kind of religious group by the name Jatila. That means they were wearing a kind of a turban, something just like that, and because of that reason they were introduced as Jatilas, and they were practicing, they were monks, they were a religious a group, and like these 7 kinds of groups, religious groups are passing just close by the Buddha and this king. Once after these 7 kinds of groups passed the monastery, the king, of course, he started to say something very nice. He said that first what he did, he of course respected those 7 kinds of ascetics, these saints, saying that it's wonderful what he says. He says that if there are fully perfect people in this world, if there are arahants in this world, if there are people who are emancipated from this circle of birth and death, in other words, the arahants, the fully perfect people, those 7 kinds of groups of ascetics are also definitely among them. They also should deserve a place among those great nobles. Why? Because they are ascetics. And by the time when the king said this, Buddha was also just close to him, and he asked a question from the king: how do you know that whether they are true ascetics, whether they are true monks? What kind of knowledge have you got to prove that they are ascetics, they are true monks? King was speechless. He had got nothing to say. There Buddha said that what I said earlier, it is only by living together you can know that whether the other person is practicing a kind of morality. It takes time, it takes a longer time. So that's the story. And finally something specific, interesting happened, and king was speechless. He had got nothing to say. And king said finally, Bante, those 7 groups of monks who passed just a while ago, they are not true monks. They are not true ascetics. They are my spies. Right? Their job is to go here and from place to place in the country and see whether something misdemeanor is going in the country, and they will report it to me. They are my servicemen. They are spies, right? And this is very important because today when we look at, when we see a person, of course we tend to, how I can say, justify that person by his outward appearance, which is so terrible. This happens throughout the whole world. Just by looking at a person's outward appearance, we cannot judge whether he is a good or a bad person. So what is the way, what is the method we can use to understand whether that person, whether the other one is practicing a kind of morality or like this? Of course, when you go through the Buddha's teaching, in many places in his discourses, in his doctrine, he has used some kind of terms, specific terms, to introduce this morality, this moral conduct. And there it says that if we are practicing some kind of morality, we always have to understand it in conformity with this. I think there are 9 terms. First one is, if it is a sila, if it is a morality, it should be beloved by the noble people. Ariyakanta sila. In Pali it is said that Ariyakanta. Ariyakanta means it is a conduct, it is a higher level of moral conduct, good behavior, beloved by the good people, noble people, those who achieved higher level of states in their mind. That is the first one, because they have practiced it, they have tested it, right, and they have gained the results. We are not the people who are going to first practice it for the first time. Many were the people who practiced that path, that sila, that moral conduct earlier. Those people, of course, used it and got rid of much sufferings because of that high level of conduct. Results for this, still we can have the results if we practice it. Okay, the second one, the moral conduct or good behavior we are practicing should always have to be something unbroken. Akanda, akanda means in Pali it is said unbroken. If it is kanda, kanda means something is broken. Akanda, your sila, your morality has to be unbroken. There are 4 other terms, achidda, akammasa, asabala, like this, akanda, achidda, akammasa, asabala. Those Pali terms have got specific means, but I'll tell you the meaning in brief. It means that if you are practicing a kind of moral conduct, it has to be unspotted, unblemished, untarnished, right, and not impaired in any case. That's what it means. Akamma, achidda. Achidda means patchless. Suppose if you are driving a vehicle and you have got the tires with many patches, how we can go the journey? It's very difficult, right? So our moral conduct, whatever we are practicing, has to be always patchless, right? And when it comes to this next part, the other terms Buddha have used are also very, very important. Buddha says it always has to be something free from attachments, bujissa. We are not practicing moral conduct or good behavior because of others, for the sake of others, in brief, to make others happy. It is self-restraint always. It depends on our understanding. Bujissa. For instance, suppose if you are practicing a kind of specific rule or precept, for instance, not to kill, right, any other being in this universe, it is because of the monks in the temple, you get rid of, or if you promise to practice that precept for the rules in the government, right? If you kill animals, if you kill beings, human beings, you will get caught by the law and you will have to go to the prison. And you are practicing this because of the government law like this, it's not a good thing. Buddha says that you always have to practice this with a self-restraint, with a self, understanding. Buddhist. Then another term Buddha has used to specify this conduct is Vinyupasatta. Vinyupasatta means remember that this moral conduct or good behavior we are practicing today, right, will be praised, will be appreciated by the wise in this world. No one will accuse you. No one will blame you. The more you try to get rid of, bad conduct, bad behavior, they will appreciate you. They will thank you. They will respect you. That's what it is meant by Vinyupasatta. Then the other one is very important, Aparamatta. You always have to practice this moral conduct, this good behavior without attachments, right? If you are practicing moral conduct with the idea of being born among the deities, right? Otherwise, to get the popularity among your fellow beings. Yes, there are people, you just imagine. There are many people in this world among our society, right? Those who practice moral conduct or some kind of good behavior to gain the popularity, to be famous in the society. It becomes a kind of ulterior motive. Buddha says that no. You have to practice it not because of these things, trivial things, but for the sake of something specific. Give me one more minute to come to that level. And finally, Buddha uses a very specific term to clarify the real meaning of this moral conduct or this, sila. It is samadhi samvattanika. You may have heard the word Pali term samadhi, right? Samadhi means the concentration. Whatever the terms we use, it doesn't matter. We don't need to argue, right? And samadhi means concentration or the unity of the mind, right? We are practicing moral conduct. We are trying our best to get rid of bad things, bad conduct, specifically to achieve the concentration, to gain the unity of the mind. Because when we are trading, when we are practicing the Buddha's path, we have to remember all, these three kind of things. First, we have somehow or the other, we have to practice some kind of good behavior. If you believe that while you are practicing bad things, for instance, killing, stealing, like this, all these things, no. You will be confused and you won't be able to experience peace in your mind. You have to practice some kind of good behavior in your life. When you are practicing some kind of good behavior, what does it mean? A bit by bit, you are gaining, you are improving, you are gaining something, you are improving. What is that? That means you are controlling your five senses, right? Unless you control your five senses, you won't be able to achieve the higher targets, higher goals in Buddhism, right? So that's why the Buddha said that sila, this self-restraint, always has to be focused on concentration or unity of the mind. And now you may get the question, oh wow, if this is always has to be practiced, unbroken, undamaged, how can it be? It is something possible. Mistakes are possible. Yes, Buddha also accepted that mistakes are possible. If you can refer the Dhammapada, find the verse 172 verse, right? I'm cocksure that is the number 172. There Buddha says, Yocha pubbe pamajjitva That means one who formerly was, heedless, pachaso nappamajjati. Suppose later on, after due, consideration, pachaso nappamajjati. So imang lokam pabaseti abha mutto chandima. Buddha says that he, with due consideration, and after coming to some kind of vigilance, he says that such a person will definitely illumine the whole world as the moon freed from a cloud. Many would be the people rewarded by such a conduct, by such a moral behavior. Mistakes are possible. We always have to use mistakes. I do believe mistakes are also just like muscle. Mistakes are also always, it's just like a muscle. If we only use it properly, we can improve it. Suppose if we don't, definitely it gets weaker and weaker. It gets stronger and stronger if only we use it properly. That's what we have to understand. And I think I must come to the end of my speech. No need of going into much details regarding those things. Remember those paths I earlier explained. Whenever we are practicing some kind of sila, some kind of moral conduct or behavior, after taking some precepts, or whether you are a Buddhist monk, all this applies to me also. Remember, even not only you, as a Buddhist monk, I have to understand that all these things applies to my life also. And Buddha says in his teachings, if you are practicing this kind of a moral conduct, definitely your final goal is at hand. In other words, to achieve the bliss of the Buddha's teaching with Nibbana, Nirvana is at hand, right? And you will be rewarded in wherever you are going and whatever you are doing. But remember that first we have to define these precepts and these mistakes. There are some kind of mistakes that also fall into the category of sila, but suppose if you transgress these rules, you won't be punished. For instance, in an Asian country, the way we take food is quite different from here, right? And at the same time, there is a place, I'll use this this Pali term and I'll translate it into English also. In one occasion, Buddha says that this is for the monks. If you are not attending to the things in the temple, for instance, to clean, to cook, right, and to conduct the pujas, to conduct the mass, chanting like this, Buddha says that he is not practicing some kind of morality. Vattang paripurento nasilang paripurati. That's the Pali term. The one who is not attending to the things in the temple is not practicing sila. This has to be defined. This always has, because of course it's a kind of conduct, a moral conduct. But suppose if you transgress it, you don't have to pay for it, but you will repent. The reason is you will have to do something in the temple if you are living with the others, right? We should not exploit the others' labor. We also have to do something. If we are living in society, in a family like this, we have got some kind of responsibilities. It becomes a kind of conduct. But suppose if you transgress it, you don't have to pay for it, but you will definitely repent. You feel like I'm not good. Yes, okay. And like this, there are some ways of defining this morality, and I think that's it. I have got to share with you today. Thank you so much, and many blessings.